This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, world builders? This is Steven, your host with Fantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friends Josh and Jake here today, and we're doing something a little bit different. So usually I'm kind of the de facto host and talk you through whatever it is we're talking about, but this time I'm going to turn it over to Josh and Jake to kind of be co-hosts and interview me of sorts. We're doing another one of our world building episodes. We've done a couple before. I think each one of you have kind of, we've interviewed you, some of your ideas, and this is just designed to be fun, discussion of some ideas. I think we all, have ideas and think it would be fun to write books eventually. And Josh has made the most progress on that, but I'm starting to maybe make progress. I'm kind of hoping this is a bit of a motivator if I have to actually talk about my ideas out loud.
All right. Well, Stephen, I think you might be a little bit hot off your host game because usually you say Jake's name first. So I'm happy that I'm actually kind of honored that I got the spot. The first
I
spot
went
tonight.
away from the alphabetical.
You usually say Jake and Josh because it always makes me think of Drake and Josh.
I think that is 100% the reason. Drake and Josh, I think, is the only reason he says my name first.
Or alphabetical, or
maybe alphabetical.
Or, you're just
I'm looking at the screen, and in this video recording, we have Josh at the top and Jake at the bottom. So maybe that's why that happened. Hard to say, but yeah. Thanks for further throwing me off my game.
All right. So yeah, I'm excited personally to talk to you, Stephen, about this book. We've gotten little snippets. You've talked to us a little bit about the world kind of that you're building. You've shared a little excerpt that you've written in a couple different ways. So, and I've been intrigued and quite excited. I don't know. What about you, Jake?
Oh yeah. You should be really excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We have a writing accountability channel in Discord that you guys have been posting in a lot. So interest has been piqued for sure, and I'm excited to be able to do a little Q&A to dive into what you got cooking there.
There was a lot of posting kind of early in November when that excitement over November writing month was going on. It's kind of
right.
Kind of fizzled off a little bit, but like I said, I'm hoping to get re-energized, and maybe talking with you guys will help me do that. So we'll see.
Nice. So give us the elevator pitch for this story that you're trying to write.
Yeah. So it turns out elevator pitch is a little difficult because when you start writing a story, you have all these ideas and different ways you could present this, but I'll say it's a first person. It's going to be mostly a first person story. It's probably most heavily influenced by Name of the Wind and James Eilington's new book, The Will of the Many, which both kind of have, they're both very much first person. Name of the Wind has more of a third person framing story as well, which I'm also going to do, but I don't want it to be too similar to either of those. So I feel like the plot diverges a lot, but it is, first person kind of coming of age. There's going to be a magic school. I'm just kind of sticking to the things that I like reading about. And I feel like, those are elements we've seen a lot, but those are always things that intrigue me when I read. So that's what I wanted to write about. And I'm just going to kind of go for what I want to write about.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I feel like most authors must write what they like to read, right? Because those are the things that influence them the most to start out with. And I feel like the story within a story, like the framing device, that's not, I don't think Rothfuss owns that. I think Bloodsong is another good example of that. Pretty much the same thing, but feels completely different. So,
and that was, I went back and forth on that. And I can explain a little bit more about what the story is going to be. I'm not going to get too far into it because, spoilers, right? Because you're going to want to read the whole thing when it's written in the year 2035 or whatever. But there was a purposeful reason why. And I was thinking for a while, I'll just do straight first person. The framing is just a little too hard to pull off, or maybe is not needed. But as I was thinking about it more, I decided that I did want to have it, and I think it will affect the story positively. I've been really purposefully trying to make sure that my decisions for the way that I plot this out and decide how I want to do it are not totally influenced by, I love Name of the Wind. It's my favorite book. I don't want to just copy that, but I do like a lot of the things that they do in it, so I'm influenced by it. So
Personally, I don't think you have to worry about copying Name of the Wind. I think that
well,
I mean, I
here's
know
the
you had
reason
that
why. Because
Okay.
there was a book that came out earlier this year or last year that was like literally a copy of The Name of the Wind. And it was like fairly popular. And I read the whole thing and I liked it, but the whole time I was like, this is such a copy.
Oh, really? What book
Yeah.
was that?
It's called The First Binding.
First Binding. Okay.
Yeah, but
It
you're
came
not
out
gonna
last year.
you're
Yeah.
not gonna do that though.
No, right. But
I
I'm
just
like
don't think
real
you
paranoid because that
I don't think
really
you have to
bugged
be
me.
paranoid. I think the more paranoid you are on trying not to do that, it could have a negative impact on your story because you're going to do things that you don't want to do
Don't
or
want to
think
restrict too much.
yeah, just write what you want to write. And if it, like, okay, I'll put it this way. If The First Binding was the first book that you wrote and it came out like that and was that well received, then would that be a success?
If I wrote, yeah, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
like,
So huge success. So if your
yeah,
first book comes out a little bit derivative of your favorite book, and it's a great book, and that's not a bad scenario to have happen,
yeah,
like and first of all, I don't think you're going to do that because I think you have like, you've read a ton of different books, you have a lot of different thoughts going, you have a lot of different ways you want to take the story. I don't think you're going to come off as derivative of The Name of the Wind, and the worst case being that you are. I think that's a better case than not writing the book that you want to write because you're worried about being too derivative.
Yeah,
I
along
think
those
that's a
same
good point.
lines, like you're gonna do multiple drafts, so just write what you want, and then if it does seem too derivative, you can go back and edit some stuff. If not, like,
Yeah,
I
there's
just yeah
that's like my biggest struggle with being creative in general, is feeling like I need to like nail the concept of it ahead of time before committing any productivity to it. So I'm just spewing advice I don't follow, but I think that's important to keep in mind, right? Like you can,
right, right.
like you might think
That
it is, but once you finish it, it might not be, and then you're good.
yeah, the fact that every author talks about that is just so like uh it's scarring me almost before it's happening, because just the thought of like writing about, spending all the time to write something and then throw it out, like, oh my gosh, that seems
Yeah.
terrible, but seems like it's part of the process. So yeah, I'm trying to commit to that and just go for it. And I did write a little bit towards the beginning of the month and kind of got on a roll, kind of backed off, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. But let me tell you maybe a little bit more about where I'm
Yeah.
going with the story. So
Magic
yeah,
school. So there's a magic school.
yeah. So Magic School, I think that's going to come in kind of like the second 2/3 or so. It's going to start off with kind of, your classical origin story. I'm not going to make the kid an orphan. By the way, so I have some names of things. They're a little fluid. I'll throw out the names that I'm
Yeah. Use
thinking
the
about using.
names. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how they sound. Maybe I'll change them. Some of them I'm more attached to than others. So the main character's name is going to be Aziel, which is Aziel. I kind of like that one. I think I'm gonna stick
Aziel.
with that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Aziel, something like that. I guess people will debate about how to pronounce it once it's
Yeah.
a big commercial success.
Mhm.
So he's not going to be an
You're not going to
orphan,
have a
but he is going to
pronunciation
be.
guide.
Yeah, sure. There'll be a pronunciation guide, but people don't really follow that anyway. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll have the Bulgarian seeker pronounce the name, and then everyone can go off of that. Harry
Excellent.
Potter. Yeah, Harry Potter deep
Yeah,
cut.
yeah.
For you.
Yeah. The
Okay.
Hermione.
Hermione.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's not going to be an orphan, but he is going to be separated from the parents. That's kind of like a thing that would be probably too much of a spoiler to explain what I'm
Okay.
planning on doing with
So
that.
that's a big plot point, being separated.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's going to go off on his adventure, and eventually he'll make it to the school. Some things will happen, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't I don't think I want to get too into that. Maybe I'll tell you more about the weeds of like the world and the lore and the magic that I'm planning.
Yeah, what's
But
the central conflict? Like, what's the, yeah.
so the series, I'm planning on doing a trilogy. The series wide conflict is this this war between the two main civilizations, and each of the civilizations wields magic in different ways. And they've been fighting for years. I'm debating I might use the term millennia war. They've been fighting for a long time. And now it's cooled down, and we're entering into a Cold War type of period. And the world is also modernizing a bit. I'm thinking like 1700s, 1800s kind of Earth level of technology.
Or like
So this is
Gentleman's
also,
Bastards kind of feel to
yeah,
it.
yeah, could be. I don't really
Okay.
love the steampunk genre, so I'm not going to get too into that. But more of like an expanding world, a little bit of maybe industrial revolution, which I know is getting into steampunk, but I don't want to
Are
be
like
too much.
I think like Brian McClellan's books, kind of like those, or not?
Yeah, it
Are
could
those
be. I
too
don't know if
steam?
I'm gonna have guns or not. Guns just like totally changes everything. I
I
don't know
mean,
if I
if
want
yeah,
guns or not.
yeah, it's kind of tricky.
They
Yeah.
could just like not have gunpowder though.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because that, I mean, that rearranges a lot of what your magic can and like will be
Mhm.
used for.
yeah,
Right.
a little bit for me. Just I know we're not doing mine at all, but like, um, mine part of the magic system is that people can like is that like some one of the civilizations can like just channel electricity, like their body can like generate electricity.
Oh,
So
right. I
therefore,
remember that.
they will have never really discovered like gunpowder. You know, like they would like their body's electricity can fuel a lot of the activities they
Mm.
do. So it's kind of like they're going through kind of an industrial revolution, only it's with like electricity being the basis and not like coal or like gunpowder base. So I think as long you even if you just have like somewhat of a justification in your head for like
Mhm.
why you wouldn't have gunpowder or guns, then I think you're fine. You know, like if the magic was good enough to for combat that they would have never looked elsewhere for something, then
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I like what you brought up, that idea of, the magic influencing everything, making it realistic part of the world. Like obviously that's really important to have a nice, believable, grounded fantasy book.
Yeah. I remember you talking about um, when we were messaging about it in the Discord that it's like two super continents, right? That are kind of at
Mm-hmm.
and stop me if I'm getting into to spoilers.
No, that
Um,
yeah.
and that I'm trying to remember. Dang, I had a thought just now and then. But
So
yeah, so
there's
the two supercontinents, and was there something about the magic itself that was central to the conflict? I could be misremembering.
yeah, each of the continents has a different civilization that's developed there, and they use the magic in two different ways, which is a big distinguishing
Okay, so it's like
reason why they've always been at war. There are, and there's kind of a whole hidden backstory to what's going on and some reasons why they've been fighting for so long that I can't get into now, but I feel like should be a good twist towards the end of this series if I can pull it off.
okay. So that global conflict is like the main conflict of the trilogy. And does the main character have allegiance to one of the sides, or does he just happen to be kind of in the middle of it?
He's going to be raised on one side. I can explain a little bit what I'm thinking about with the magic, maybe in a little bit, but he's going to be raised on one side, and the school is is located in between the two continents. So I'm kind of thinking like a geography, kind of like Westeros and Essos and the Narrow Sea between them. So you can kind of imagine something like that. and the school is on one of the like the step zones
Yeah.
in George R. R. Martin's world. So it's in between the two, and students attend from both sides. So it's kind of this like neutral ground, and you have literally enemies, civilizational enemies. I don't know what the term for that is, attending the same school. And while they're there, they're supposed to be neutral and not, kill each other. And it kind of works because it's a Cold War right now. So there's, reasons that they're not going to break out and just start killing each other at the school, but they're being trained to be basically, it's somewhat of a war/leadership school, but the first book is not going to get too much into that. The first book, I imagine, again, more like Name of the Wind, where there's not a huge world saving conflict. It's more of a individual character conflict, at least in the first one. And then I plan on kind of building it up from that point.
And is the reuniting with his parents the main conflict of book one, or is that going to span multiple books?
I'm not sure if that fits into book one. That's probably going to be, that's part of it. That's part of the plot line that's going to span multiple books.
That's like a plot line that like should have enough weight to it that the resolution will be like, I don't know, have weight to it. I don't know how to describe it. It's real. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, I do think it seems like that should be one that should last a couple books,
Yeah.
To like really, because you want to like build up the longing and like the desperation to find them and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. The other main conflict that I want to have, and the reason why I want this to be a real, a lot more character focused and rather than world saving focus, is so the main character, and this is also why I want to have the framing story and the first person story. So about kind of towards the end of the action, and this isn't a spoiler, you'll see in a second, towards the end, or kind of the latter portion of this book, in the first person coming of age story, the main character is injured and becomes paralyzed. And that's obvious from the framing story, because the framing story takes place in the future. So you can see that this is, a health issue, disability that he's dealing with at this time. But you don't get to see how it happens until later on. And I want this to be really the focus. Like, honestly, I want this to be the focus of the series, but I needed to have enough action before it happens so that after he's injured, there's enough weight to it and you can see the changes and the impacts. But I needed it to also be, I needed to be obvious from the beginning, because I felt that if it was the focus of the trilogy, I can't just have it be the thing that happens towards the end of the first book. It needs to be like kind of right there from the beginning.
Yeah, that's hard because you want it to be a good reveal. Mm-hmm. In turn, well, maybe not reveal, but you want it to like be executed well in a way that it's like,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good decision to have it transparent in the beginning. So yeah, how long? So you think like at the end of book one, or like 2/3 of the way through book one, or like halfway?
Thinking about
what's the sweet spot?
2/3. The reason why he's injured and the event that it happens at is going to be somewhat of the climax of the book, and then there'll be some falling action as he kind of deals with some things and tries to pick up his life. And then going into the second book, it'll kind of continue from that point. And just side note, the reason why I want to do this is because you guys know this, obviously, but if you're listening, I am also paralyzed. And so I wanted to kind of put that representation into the book that I was writing. And I felt like, putting that piece of myself into it would make for a stronger book. So I'm excited to do that. And personally, like, I think it'll just be a good personal project for myself to kind of get some of that out there.
What so it seems like that's going to be the main thematic piece of the series. Like, the plots will have their overarching like conflicts and stuff, but like in terms of like what is the like what the readers will take away, that's going to be the main focus of that.
Right.
Are there specific, not that I don't know that all authors like have to be consciously like sharing a message, but I feel like that's good books do like at least put out like a message as like a hypothesis to consider, you know. So what aspect of that do you want to be the main, or like a main thing for people to be pondering, or like
Yeah.
to be reflecting in their
No,
lives after having read it?
I'm glad you asked that question. And this is something that I've thought about a lot. I feel like there's a lot of books where disability is used as a plot device, and sometimes, sometimes better than others, but a lot of times the resolution of a plot is like we've conclude, the climax happens and the person has won or whatever, and as part of this they receive, some kind of like physical healing, or they are now like restored to their original state. And it's almost like this conflicting, like I don't like these messages because there's some kind of underlying tones of, the person was imperfect before, now they've gone through everything, now they are, restored once again, and this is kind of like the natural state of things. And like, sure, if you're disabled, like it's nice to think that, there could be some healing for me. But I feel like the stronger message is I'm disabled and I'm going through all these things and I come out of it on the other side. And, there's not really magic in the real world. And so this very rarely happens where you're able to have this type of healing. So the more powerful thing is to learn how to live with it and become a better person in of yourself, who you are, and accept, that being disabled is part of who you are, and grow from it. And so that's what I like to do. And so obviously kind of, that's not going to happen in this book. The resolution is not going to be that he's no longer paralyzed. He will be, but hopefully the reader kind of is taken along this journey of acceptance and personal growth within that disability.
So do you think it's more important the reader's takeaway is like understanding self-acceptance and like self-worth post the accident, or more learning how to like be resilient and still be, what's the word for it, like I'm thinking like of Glocta from First Law, just because from my perspective, that's one of the better representations of disabilities in fantasy.
Yeah.
Where part of like, and this isn't really his arc because we're seeing a different view of his life in the series, but a big part of his character is that, he was very useful in one way before his torture, and he found a way to be useful in other ways that he wasn't before, and he can't be the same useful in those same ways after. So I guess like the takeaway there would be the resilience aspect of like looking inward and being like, okay, this is where I'm at. Like, how do I move forward? Sorry, that was long-winded. So which one of those do you think would be more important?
Honestly, I think both. I am planning on, this is kind of tricky because, like I said, I don't want there to be a magical healing for the character, for Hazel. But I am planning on him being able to use the magic in ways that counteract the physical limitations, so that he's still able to kind of, get out and move around and do some things. However, there are going to be, pretty steep limitations built into that. And that's going to kind of continue to build. So he's still going to be paralyzed, but he's going to be able to get around it a little bit. So there's going to be that, resilience aspect. I mean, obviously you don't need that to be resilient, but that's going to be kind of part of it. But it's going to be kind of a question of what is the permanence of this situation? Is it sustainable? What is kind of, the long-term outlook going to be here? And he's got to make some hard personal decisions.
So I was going to ask kind of how, in a world of magic, I feel like one thing you will have to be kind of considerate of is not writing yourself in a position that like a healing would make logical sense or something, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if magic exists, you have to structure that magic where it just can't heal him, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's going to be kind of a tricky balance to line to walk, because
Right.
I think
right.
there's
if
some
it's
like
there, why not do it?
yeah
I think there's some ways you could kind of hand wave it in a way where it like is consistent. Like if some aspect of the accident itself is like anti-magic, and so even if there was healing magic, like it, and I obviously I don't have specifics, but something like that where it's just
Kind
like
of like how Stormlight, there are some things that people aren't able to heal from because they're like spirit web or whatever. Like it doesn't.
it becomes a part of who they are or something, and
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Which
honestly,
I think
I was
Sanderson,
just planning on not having healing magic. Like that's not something the magic does. That's all I was planning on doing.
Nice. Yeah. I think that'd be enough. I think you just have to kind of be cognizant of it, because like, I don't know. I guess just we've all read like the Wheel of Time and stuff, and how the magic kind of progresses and rotates, especially around healing and stuff in that series. And it makes it interesting, but also you wouldn't want to have that be in conflict with the themes and purpose and part of the story you're trying to tell.
So healing magic is kind of a staple in a lot of fantasy. And without that, I feel like that's going to add a grittier
true
feel to it, which is would be really interesting. I'm trying to think.
It's kind of like First Law. Like First Law has magic,
Yeah.
but not really healing magic. That I recall, maybe.
I think if you're an eater, you heal yourself, but
yeah,
I think you have some healing factor.
is Aziel, is he going to be an eater, Stephen?
No, there are no eaters.
Dang.
There's no planned cannibalism.
What kind of, I assume it's going to be a harder magic system, just because that seems up your alley.
Yeah. I'm not planning on doing a Sanderson level of hard magic system, but and this is still a little bit under in the works, but so there's two magics. They both kind of stem from the same source, but one of them is more focused on external elements of your, like external meaning not enhancing your own body, but control over external things, right? And then there's one that's going to be more of internal elements. The external one I've thought about more because that's going to be Aziel's background, and so he's going to have that power set. So the idea here is it's basically kind of just complete control over things around you, but the unique thing, or the more unique element, I'm sure this is done elsewhere, but the unique thing to it is that you have like a limited field of control around you. So I can, within a small area around my body, which maybe could be different for different people, I'm able to basically, move air, water, fire, whatever, right? But if you go 10 feet away or something, then I have no power here.
Yeah. Okay. So by move, do you mean like telekinetic type moving, or like air bending movement?
Is there a difference? I'm not a big Avatar person.
Oh yeah, well, like Avatar, it's
the
like
way you said air, water, fire.
yeah, that's what made me think of it. Can they just like generate fire out of thin air within their radius, or is it just there's a
Yeah.
an axe
So they're
nearby
not
that they can move.
right. You're not able to generate whatever it is. I can't just conjure up water or fire.
Oops.
But thumbs down from Jake. If you're not watching, Jake's video just did a
Yeah,
little involuntary zoom gesture. So Jake does not approve of that idea.
that new Mac update. Let's see if that one works. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Wait, did you
do
like
approve of
because
that
you
one.
frowned? Because you frowned, it gave it a thumbs down.
No, it must have seen a thumb somewhere, but I don't know.
Oh.
Anyway, so more moving objects
Mhm.
themselves. Okay.
Yeah. And really part of the reason why I built this in, the whole idea, the whole book is centered around the whole paralysis theme, right? And so I wanted a magic system that would kind of let me overcome that while still making it a big deal. So the idea is he can use magic to move all the air around him. So we can kind of like, he gets good enough and fine-tuned enough to move his own body by just moving the elements around, but still have the paralysis there.
Yeah.
So, still able to function kind of through use of the magic, but there's obviously a lot of limitations that go with paralysis other than just moving your body,
Yeah.
which frankly I would like to explore because I think a lot of people don't realize that.
This is kind of gives off like Daredevil vibes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I like that.
I think the weak part of Daredevil is he basically doesn't have a disability at all. Like his powers more than compensate for it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think
except
like
that people think he does almost. Yeah, it is kind of strange.
Because he can't see photons, but he has a mental image of everything around him. He's aware of everything. But anyways, I think that's another line to try to straddle, right? You don't want it to be like you want that struggle of he can do things, but I see like lots of opportunities of him needing to be like show some ingenuity of like how to work through the situation. Some things that would be simple before his accident and he has to be ingenious about, which then lead to situations that he wouldn't have been able to solve before because he's had to think in this new way.
Right.
I think there's good potential for that.
Right.
As part of that, did this lead him to being able to have like a greater control over the magic system than like most people, or would a lot of people be able to like move their body like that?
No, I think that is the idea, because most people wouldn't even think to do that, right? And so this is going to give him a more dexterity, finer control over things.
What
Especially
about like
go ahead, Josh.
What I'm sure, I guess, like a lot of people would want to fly if they could, right? Like, is it that possible to do, or is
no?
it like...
There's no flying. No flying. That's gonna break too much. We don't want that.
So it's okay. So that's what I'm kind of.
I don't know. It could be as simple as Wheel of Time, where there's like, we couldn't figure out how to fly ever.
But he can move his. But he can move his. So I was picturing him like being able to move through the air, but that's not what you're describing. Like move his body around.
But not flying. I'll have to. So I'll have to. Make
is it more of a hover? Is it more of a hover than a fly? Or what?
I think it's going to kind of just look like natural movement, except rather than your muscles and nerves initiating the movement, it's like the outside control over the. Oh, cool. And okay. Sorry, here's my other reason for this. So normally the magic cannot you can't interact with your own body or other human bodies. Like it just doesn't work. If you were next to me and I tried to push you away magically or something, like that's just not going to work, and I wouldn't be able to control my own body as well. But the reason why it works for him is you can affect the magical substance that is kind of like the mana of the world.
Mhm.
And so I imagine this like exoskeleton suit of sorts that he's going to have to wear in order
cool.
to move himself, because then it has this like layer of the magical
That's
kind
really
of built
cool.
in. Yeah.
That's neat. That's really neat. I like that. Dang,
I
I was kind
think
of hoping for a Weekend at Bernie's thing where like you have like a dead body that the guy like puppets.
It is kind of like puppeting your own body. Yeah.
Right, right. But if you took like a dead body or something, and that seemed like a fun idea. Anyway, sorry, Jake. I've been interrupting you.
Oh no, you're good. It just made me think, like you mentioned, the external versus internal. If he had been trained in the other continents magic system, would he have been able to move his own body internally with the magic? Is that how that would work?
The
Or
internal magic, I still need to think about a bit, but so far, basically, I'm thinking of the internal magic kind of like Furukumi from Mistborn, where you can,
okay,
make muscles stronger, have better senses, etc. So neither one of the two, I mean, you asked me how hard of a magic system. Neither one are like super hard where there's all of these rules. It's really more just like this one you can control stuff around you, this stuff you can control stuff within your own body. And then from there, I'll try to be, maybe a few details here and there to make it all work.
okay. Is he I just assumed he was like a soldier at some point. Um, is he more of a combat kind of guy, or more like Quoth, where he's got some combat but more
Yeah.
strategist?
I'm thinking later on the combat will be more important, but in this first book, it's really going to be more. It's not going to be as heavy action focused. It's more going to be kind of slice of life as you just get to like a real in-depth character study of the main character.
I think with those there's an opportunity with those magic systems to have the like the dogma of each side cause some problem solving issues, like having been raised in this external way, like people wouldn't even think, like they wouldn't even think to fly if that were possible, because they're used to moving things, like their whole doctrine is like external only or something like that,
That could be cool.
like yeah,
and they're even more like, maybe the externals are more aggressive, more expansive. Internals are more like, we're gonna protect our own territory type thing.
Yeah.
Changing the subject a little bit, is there any like scene that you are super excited to write, or any events that you're just like can't wait to put on paper?
For the first book, well, I mean, I don't want to get into the scenes too much, because I feel like, one, they're not planned out enough, and two, they would be maybe a little bit further into the book. But like, I'm not necessarily like excited to write this, but I feel like the whole thing centers around him getting hurt and the aftermath of that, and just the way that's all going to play out. So I don't know, like weirdly looking forward to putting that part down. And I feel like that's something that's going to be just like really deeply personal and emotional to me. So I hope that I can do that well, because I mean, that's the whole, like, that's what I want to resonate with people. And so I feel like that's the most important scene in this book.
Yeah. Do you think you'd want to like share that scene, like once you have it written, to get like kind of like beta readers from other people who have gone through similar things?
Oh, that could be cool.
Because I mean, obviously, like in general, people want beta readers, and like you've gone through it, but it's different when you're writing it versus, because you're like, this is what I'm trying to convey, but am I conveying it right? In the way you really want it to. I don't know. That'd be really cool to. I just like seeing like all the mental health stuff that Sanderson has put out, and like hearing people's feedback on that. Like, wow, that really resonated with me.
Yeah, and he has beta readers from lots of
Yeah.
walks of life and tries to, really nail those things if he's going to include it in his books.
Yeah.
It's a good
That's
idea.
cool. Have you started? You've been talking about writing scenes. Have you started writing anything close to that scene yet?
No, I haven't. Well, actually, I started it a little bit, but then I was like, I don't want to start here. So I started writing just from like chapter one, which is going to be the framing story, which is, in the future. And the framing story is going to deal more with the wider conflict and kind of hint at what is to come in the future. But like I said, the first book is really going to be introducing the ideas that are going to lead to the conflict, introducing characters and factions, etc., but really just really focused on our main guy Aziel and his problems. And then I feel like once I have that base laid, then I'll be able to expand and yeah.
Yeah. Put him more into the central conflict of the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there going to be any romance that you're going to write?
Oh,
I get
you
either
know
between-
it.
I
You
could
know
I could
it.
the main
tell
character,
I could tell by
like-
the way that you're leading that up you were gonna ask that question.
Okay, well, I asked it.
Yeah. No, yeah, there's gotta be romance, right?
Okay,
There's going to be a character named Deanna, and
No.
she's gonna have a patron.
No.
That wasn't even a reference to you saying that you're worried about this book being too derivative of Name of the Wind. That was just a reference to Stephen's like most famous or most
Bad take.
beloved not bad take, most beloved romance in fantasy, I think. Is that maybe not romance, but just I feel like we both agree that Rothfuss just nailed that like wistfulness and like longing of a relationship so well with Quoth and Denna. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, Jake. I mean, that is I don't agree in that that's what I'm going to do, but I do agree that that is
Yeah.
a good an inspiration, and I really that really resonated with me. Kind of, yeah, that wistfulness, that coming of age romance type of feelings, right? So yeah, no, I definitely want to try to capture that. I think that's an important part of growing up. I don't know exactly what I want to do there. I kind of like the idea of, I mean, I know you guys have strong opinions on love triangles, and
I knew you were
have,
going there.
yeah, you've debated that ad nauseum to the point where I don't even know exactly what you're arguing anymore.
No, we've
But
just debated the definition. That's
sure.
it.
I've debated more than one romantic interest that causes an issue. So call that a triangle or whatever you want to call it. And I think that could work. I kind of like the idea. So I really like the idea of the paralysis and the injury kind of changing everything, really, really resetting everything in his life, and that comparison between what was before and what is now. And I feel like, relationships with other characters are also going to be important for that, romantic and non-romantic. So I've kind of played around with the idea of, what if there was a romance that was budding, and then, after he was paralyzed, it no longer was, worked out for many different reasons. That could get a little, I'm not sure exactly where I want to go with that. But it's something I've thrown out, and, maybe he kind of recenters, realizes what's really important, realizes kind of some different values in his life, and then, kind of comes to realize that the previous romantic interest was really kind of, doesn't no longer supports those things. And it's really, this other person who's
The best friend.
kind of, yeah,
who's been there all along.
sure. I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I want to do Hermione and Ron, but
Yeah.
something like these are just ideas. I've not really plotted that out too much.
What kind of personality differences do you see in the main character pre and post accident?
I mean, a lot of, I don't want to,
Like, are you planning on having like stark contrast there, or not really?
In some ways, but in some ways, no. I don't want to make it too much of myself, but on the other hand, if this is the direction I'm going, then obviously I'm going to rely a lot on my own personal experience for this. So I think there will be some of that, which is, a little contrary to what most, I mean, if you ask some authors, like, did you put yourself in the book? They're always like, oh, like parts of myself or all the different characters, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, okay, maybe that's going to be true for what I'm planning as well. But I really would say that the main character I'm planning on putting, significant portions of my own experience and inevitably my own personality as well. So I see kind of, a base personality that is the same, but just a refocus on what is actually, important in life, a very quick maturity. A lot of times I think, the person I was before I was injured, the person I am after I'm injured, big difference was, I grew up like 10 years, like just in that moment. Right. And so I think that's pretty realistic to people that go through a lot of trauma or significant disabilities. Things that were important before, like, who won the latest sports game, are no longer that important.
Yeah. Do you have a name for the series? The
Name
book?
for the series? No. Honestly, I don't have either. I feel like it needs to be just right, and I don't have that right. Don't have it right yet.
Names are hard.
Yeah.
Is there any other character? I guess we'll do some like lightning rounds. Is there any other like character that you're excited to write? Like, is there a friend or an enemy or anything like that that you have in mind?
I'm excited to put it. So there's two characters that I've started writing so far that are going to be mostly in the framing story, but they're going to pop up in the first person story as well. So I'm excited to kind of like lay some groundwork and do some kind of twists on who these people are and what their motivations are. And I'm hoping that I'm able to, put some breadcrumbs in both, where then you're like, oh my gosh, this person is really involved here and here, like, type of thing.
Cool.
I feel like one weakness of The Name of the Wind is in the framing story, even through 2 books, we really kind of fail to understand the importance of what's going on. Like, there are crumbs that are doled out of what's going on with Quoth in the end, but we really have no idea exactly what's going on in the larger conflict. And I would like to make mine a little more connected. And I'm not going to have it where every book is the same framing story and we continue on the end. It's going to be more like a little more like Bloodsong, where we pick up kind of towards maybe even past the ending of the first book, kind of maybe into the ending of the second book. And we learn a little bit about that conflict as we learn about the main character's conflict. And there's a reason, there's a reason he's telling the story. It's going to tie into the current events that are going on. So a little more purpose and connectedness between the two, I think, would be exciting to read and write.
Nice.
Yeah. The biggest like developments we have in the framing story and Kingkiller Chronicles is more internal with Quoth than anything that's actually going on. Like, the outside world is still this same like broken world without really knowing like what is going to happen. So I think that would be a positive.
But I like what the framing story does in Name of the Wind, where, and I guess these are kind of mild Name of the Wind spoilers, but we're at that point now. I like that Quoth is presented, right away as someone who used to be this really powerful wizard in the past, and clearly something is wrong with him, and his magic no longer works, and his abilities are gone. What has happened, and we still didn't even really know through 2 books. But that, I feel like that setup in the framing story gives the main story a lot of momentum, even though it's totally in the background and it's not mentioned at all in the main story. Since you as the reader know something happened, that just drives the plot forward. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
All right, well, I think that. Oh, go ahead, Jake.
I was gonna say, yeah, I guess as we wrap up, what is your let's set a goal, right? We got to set a target.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do it.
We got to get some commitment.
Let's get some
extend an
accountability.
invitation.
That's
yeah,
right.
accountability. Yeah. What is your next goal for it? I know like you had the writing month in November. Are you setting like words per month type goal, words per day, or specific scenes that you want to have done by a certain time?
Honestly, I feel like I don't understand enough of what's going to be successful for me as a writer to know if I want a words per day type of goal that may even be a negative thing for me. You know, if I'm not hitting it, it's a demotivator almost. So my goal was to, sit down and either dedicated time thinking about it, putting down ideas, drafting, or writing, like doing that for a dedicated amount of time. I think that's going to be the more successful thing at first. And we're into December now, and I have some time off work, so I'm hoping, maybe I can get some momentum in that time. It's very challenging to, after the workday to throw in the creative energy towards the side hustle type of thing. Ugh. So I might try, maybe before would work well. Anyway, yeah, I need to find the way that's going to work for me. And I think maybe like an hour a day, start there, get some momentum going. And I think honestly, I'm at the point where I need to just start putting some words down. Like I really have done some fairly extensive work, and I have several documents that are detailing how some things are working. Obviously, I didn't have all the details in what I was explaining to you guys, but I think I have enough where I can go for it and kind of figure some things out on the fly. Like I'm not going to 100% outline everything.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
All right, man.
All right.
I'm excited. I'm
right.
super excited actually. Yeah, it sounds fun. I'm engaged. I want to get the story.
Good.
Yeah, we talked about this. I think one of the episodes a while ago you mentioned a little bit, and it's definitely been fleshed out a lot more. Excited to see the progress and join our Discord to bug Steven to continue writing and keep him accountable.
Yeah, shoot me some ideas or just tell me to, do my writing. Keep me accountable for sure. And I will say, there is one major idea that I am stealing / repurposing from our original combo writing effort that we had years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's directed to Jake and Josh directly, not listeners. But, years ago, we wrote a story together. We didn't finish it, but we had a bunch of ideas. And one of those I liked enough where I was like, this is going. I'm going to keep on using this. So
that was
you'll have
so
to see
fun.
I'm curious if you can guess what it is, but I guess you'll see when the draft is ready to be read.
Well, I did when you mentioned two different nations warring and they use magic differently with the magic school in the middle. That did raise a little
sound familiar.
Similarity, okay. Little similarities. Not nearly like a stealing at all, but
okay.
Yeah.
I think I can steal some of our own ideas.
Yeah.
I think that's
some of our ideas that we did nothing with. So
they exist on Google Drive, Jake.
Yeah. They do, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for humoring me, guys. I think this was successful. I feel like I want to, get back into it more.
I feel like I want you to get back into it more.
Yeah. Okay. It's always good talking about it. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you later.
See ya.